Kagatamok. I'm Mike, and today I got Zach Martin from the Surgecast with me and my line mate Matt. What's going on, Zach?
Hey, not much. Excited to be here, and thanks for the invite, guys. Looking forward to talking some hockey with you.
How long have you been podcasting, man?
Oh, geez. I want to say, I think my first ever podcast was like 2017. So I would say about on and off a good maybe 5 years. But I think last year, no, it was like 2020. I think it was kind of like I really got more into it. So I've been going on for about maybe 3 years now of actually like going full time, actually trying to put stuff out every week and stuff like that. But I would say on and off like 5 years doing podcasts.
Did you start off doing Blackhawks stuff, or did you start off doing Kane stuff?
Funny enough, actually, the first podcast was Hurricanes, but it was with a group of Hurricanes fans that wanted to get a podcast together. And then one that I did by myself for the first time was it was actually a Cleveland Indians podcast because I'm from Northeast Ohio. So it was actually like my first podcast was actually about baseball. Funny enough.
Wow. So how did you decide just to move off to hockey?
I don't know. Hockey has always been something that I did, like even as a kid, like, you know, you play floor hockey, you know, indoors in a gym when you're like 3. So, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, like it was a normal hockey stick, but we did that big like
foam.
The foam at the end of the stick. That's like the first thing I ever remember playing hockey and just absolutely just having so much fun. And then like I said, watching hockey ever since I was a kid, and going to games, you know, growing up and stuff like that, and being at a Stanley Cup final in 2006 for the Hurricanes for Game 7, that was really something.
Oh, wow.
Standing room the entire time other than intermissions. Like, I don't think you didn't sit at all during any of the period. That's how crazy it was. And then it's like, hockey's just been my entire life, and I figure, you know what? I like talking other sports, but something about hockey, man, it hits differently. I know you guys, you know, would understand, but hockey hits different for me.
Yeah, it does.
All the best memories come from hockey, basically.
Yeah, no kidding.
Game 7, man. Oh, man. Cam Ward, that was one of the best goalie performances I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. That whole
series.
That whole series, yeah. But you remember the save where he kicks his leg out at the last second and absolutely just stones, I think it was Rafi Torres right on the line. that chicken wing save with his leg. We were actually to the right. Like, we were like 5 o'clock from where his position was. Like, that's where awesome. we were on the side. All you see is his leg just kick out and just absolutely stones Torres, and we just lost it. Like,
I remember that Game 6. Sorry to cut you off. 3-0.
Oh my gosh!
He was down and out, stuck his arm out. I could not believe he made. I'm like, they're winning the cup tonight, and I know they ended up losing that game, but
yeah, that
was one of the best saves I've ever seen.
It was insane. The funny part was, like, my dad got tickets, and this is before the cup final started, and we were actually just moving back from China because my mom got a job over there, and I did eighth grade out there, but then we were moving back to Florida because we were living at Florida at the time before we went over there. We got tickets. My dad's like, let's get tickets for Game 7 because you never know, because they were like the cheapest tickets at the time to get because everyone's going to get the first 4 games. They're like, all right, let's just get tickets and let's see what happens. And it's 3-1. My dad's like, oh, all right, well, we didn't get to see them live, but hopefully they're going to win the cup then. Next thing we know, we're flying back. I think it was like a week before Game 7 or like maybe 3 days before. And the Oilers tie it up, and we're like, oh, geez. So we left that morning for Game 7 from Jacksonville, Florida, and drove all the way to the game that night. Like, we left like super early, like about a 7-hour drive from Jacksonville to Raleigh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, we had season tickets for about 2-3 years when we were in Raleigh. My dad was actually at that first game at RBC Center when they played the was it 1999?
Cool,
so yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, is it pronounced Raleigh or Raleigh?
It's Raleigh.
Okay. The reason I ask is because obviously there's people that say it both ways, and I have a friend who's from Oregon, and she mentions that it's pronounced Oregon, not Oregon. You know,
Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Midwesterners.
Yeah, like Nevada or Nevada. It's like hey, it's tomato. You know, as long as you're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Vegas, baby, Vegas.
So, you know, we're mentioning ex-Blackhawk, Cam Ward. I wanted to get to the 8-3 win that the Blackhawks had over the Ducks. I was actually pretty surprised that they did that because obviously they turned it up. Who was that, Matt? Not the Flyers. Who did they had like 8 goals in that game too?
The Hawks?
Yeah.
Oh, that was Detroit a couple weeks back. Didn't Dylan Strome have another hat trick that night?
Yeah. It was like a week ago. They did it within they had 2 8-goal games within like a week. You know, I'm really surprised. The Ducks were on a tear at the beginning of the year, and they kind of cooled off a bit. They're still a good team. I think that they have a bright future, but I did not see this 8-3 shellacking coming on, which totally means that they might get shut out in their next game because they didn't save any offense for their next one. Zach, did you get a chance to check out that Ducks game?
Oh yeah, I mean, how could you not? The fact that
I'm sorry, did you get to see that Kane showcase?
Oh yeah, Kaner just goes absolutely off for 6 points. Stromer gets a hattie because why not? I caught a good bit of that game, and it was like I'm sitting there. It's like 3-0. I'm like, all right, this is pretty cool. You know, the Hawks got some offense. Like, where's this team been all of a sudden? And the next thing you know, it's like 5-0. I'm just sitting there going, excuse me. Like, where's this Hawks team been all season? We've been kind of like hoping for, because because you look how the roster was set up. You're like, okay, this roster is gonna make a run. Next thing you know, we're like 1-9-3 or some nonsense like that, and then it's like, sheesh, goes off the rails. But it's like, man, if we had this team from the start, oh my word! I saw a stat. I forget who posted it. But I think I think it was Ben Pope actually. He said that Patrick Kane since like January, I think like 18th, has got like 38 points since then. He's like tied for third in the league in points since January. I'm like, here's the Kaner we all know and love, where he's just gonna go like super Kane mode and just start racking up the points out of nowhere.
Well, he found his line mates too. I mean, King finally,
gosh.
And I hope he does not touch it, because these guys are just tearing it up right now.
Oh, Matt, this could be, maybe Dylan Strome is tired of hearing me take him to the woodshed, podcast after podcast. He's producing, trying to get out of Chicago. I mean, that
or
could
a new
be,
deal.
Or a new deal. Yeah, because he
Yeah.
is looking for a new deal, and whatever the Blackhawks do, if you get an offer for this guy, get rid of him. Because it's just going to be more of the freaking same for this dude. This guy's going to go on a hot streak, maybe once in October, another time in February, and then you're not going to hear from him until next season. He's on a hot streak right now. His worth is probably the highest that it's going to be. It's time to move Dylan Strome. I got nothing against the guy personally. It's just like a pattern with him. Like, let's use Patrick Kane for example. Is Patrick Kane going to put up at least an assist a game? More than likely, yes. Let's take a look at Dylan Strome. Is Dylan Strome even going to be on the ice, or is he going to be invisible? More than likely, yes. Because that's what I think the type of player that he is. I don't know if it's a coaching thing. I don't know if it's like a head thing for him. I don't know what it is. Is it his teammates? Because from what I hear, his teammates are really supportive of him, and he's actually a really cool guy in the locker room, which is great and all. But I want to know, like, what is it with this dude who was drafted, he was like the number 3 draft pick, and then just shows flashes of who he is as a player.
Well, to be fair, it's not really on him for the fact that because you look at Jeremy Colleton, he rarely used him, or when he did use him, it was like at the most weirdest spots on the lineup, like where that's not his game. And I think that really messed with him because the fact, whatever the reason was, Jeremy Colleton really messed with him mentally, because he was fine when he first got here, and then it's just whatever reason, like the inconsistent playing time that he got. Like there was like almost like 12 games in a row he would never play. Then he'd come in for a game, and then they take him right back out. So I don't think it's Dylan Strome is bad. I just don't think Jeremy Colleton ever really gave him a shot and really put him in. Because like, I'm sorry, you can't tell me that Alex Nylander or all these other guys were better than Dylan Strome, because we saw when he first got here, he was good.
Right.
And then there were stretches where he was fine. It's just, for whatever reason, I think Jeremy Colleton just never really got out of his own way to give Dylan Strome a chance. And I think Derek King finally, and for me, it's like, I don't think Derek King is the coach. I think we got to find a legit coach for a rebuild, because Derek King isn't it. But I think having Strome on the first line with DeBrincat and Kane actually works, because they've tried that on the second line. It never worked. But I think as a first, like with the first line minutes that he's getting with these two guys, I think he's 18 points in his last 18 games or something like that. Dylan Strome, it's not a small flash in the pan. We're going 18 straight games with points here. That's a pretty solid run for someone like Dylan Strome. I think he's finally got the confidence that he needed. Plus, I mean, he's a dad now too, so it's it's the dad line with DeBrincat, Kaner, and and Strome. I think it's finally just clicked for those guys, and I think that's what Strome really needed, was just a solid line of guys that he can work with and just give him a chance to prove what he's actually worth. I think Dylan Strome would be a perfect guy to have for this potential rebuild we're going to have, because we're going to need centers. Because Kirby Dach isn't really doing that well as a center. Now they got him on the wing, and we got Tyler Johnson back. He costs $5 million. He's been here for a while, but Tyler Johnson is a first line center. Jonathan Toews has been beyond inconsistent this year, and I think he's really fallen off. So out of all the guys you have, I think where Dylan Strome is right now, I think he's your best bet as your first line center for a possible rebuild that we're going to see starting next season.
Oh man, I couldn't disagree with you more. He's on an 18 game streak for the first time in I don't know what, three years.
It's been a bit.
We're talking about a guy that you nailed it on the head, man. He has to play first line minutes, but he's not a first line player. And yeah, he is playing on what is quote unquote the first line between DeBrincat and Kaner, but he was also on the second line with DeBrincat and Kaner when he fell off. So, I think that, yeah, he can be a good player. I don't think that he's a first line player. And I think that if we're going to be doing a rebuild, I think that there's a prospect out there that we can get that's going to turn into something better than into something better than Strome. Jonathan Toews does something that nobody else on the team can do, and that's win faceoffs. Every other guy on this team is questionable at best. I'm not even going to bring Kirby Dach into the conversation on faceoffs, because he's a centerman playing wing. But Tazer can win faceoffs. I don't think that he is the prime Jonathan Toews that we're used to seeing, the guy who could put up 35 goals a year and be a Selke candidate. But I think that he plays the center position better than anybody else on the team. And we're talking about a guy who, like you said, has fallen off. And I will agree with you on that, definitely, because he's not the guy that he used to be. Whatever illness he had, what was it, the chronic immune syndrome that he had. It's showing. It is, and it's affected him in quite a lot of ways. And at the same time, a lot of these elite players, they play hockey for 14, 15 years before they even get into the game, and then they have to stay at that kind of fitness to stay in the league. He essentially took a year and a half off. I can't imagine what that did to his conditioning, where as of now, I think that he's actually kind of coming back a little bit, not to who he was, prior to this illness, but to a serviceable center who can win faceoffs, which we direly need. If we could trade Dylan Strome for another center who's, even a guy like, even just a guy who can win faceoffs, I think that that's a plus, because how many times are we in the offensive zone, 45 seconds left in the game, we need a faceoff win, and we can't get one from Strome or anybody on the team, a Carpenter, anybody. It happens all the time, and it really affects our possession game.
Yeah, I mean, I see. I get what you're getting at, and for me, it's I wish, for the Hawks, whatever reason, development has not really been a thing for the Hawks for a good number of years now, because we can clearly see that outside maybe DeBrincat and a few other guys, there's really no solid quote unquote development of, all right, here's some centers. Like center depth has always been an issue for the Hawks for a good while outside of the cup runs when you had, was it Jesus and a few, and like when you had a bunch of dudes who could actually win faceoffs and one of the Hawks were stacked. It's just, I think if you, I don't think a prospect would necessarily be it, because that means the team has to help get this guy prepared.
Right.
And I don't really, like outside of maybe like 2 or 3 guys, like how many guys have we really seen in the last decade that the Hawks have truly developed into a solid center or a guy who's legit like lights out?
That's why
position.
Bowman's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't develop. We were winning and winning, but like in that sense, we were losing at not developing these guys.
Exactly.
That's why Detroit. I have so much respect for Detroit when they were winning all those years. They had guys in the pipeline ready to take a role when a guy would retire. We never had that.
Yeah, because outside of Lucas Reichel, who do we really have in terms of forwards that are ready to go right now? Defense,
Mitchell, defense, yes.
Yeah. And you look at the defense. I mean, you have Wyatt Kalynuk. You got, Mike Hardman. You got like Ian Mitchell. We have a plethora. Yeah, Regula. We have a plethora of defensemen, but it's log jams because you bring in Jake McCabe, you bring in the Jones brothers, which don't get me started on that. I like Seth Jones. Don't get me wrong. It's just a contract. That's a whole different thing. And Seth has been mediocre at best, and I think the contract's getting to him already, and he hasn't even started it yet. But I just don't really see the depth of this team is not really there. Like you look at Rockford, I mean, there's maybe like Isaac Phillips, maybe, but and like I said, Lucas Reichel, but it's tough when you look at teams like the Chicago Wolves. They are absolutely stacked. You look at Rockford, they're not really very much of anyone down there, so it kind of makes you wonder for the Hawks, can you even really get anyone from your farm system that's going to be good enough to come up and do anything right now outside of, like you said, trading for players or drafting them? And even then, Stan Bowman hasn't really been the best guy for drafting players, because we got some defensemen from, it was the Prince Albert Raiders or something like that everyone's like, why this guy? Like,
or he'll trade him. That's what his thing was. I mean,
Yoka Haru. Oh, don't even get me started on the Yoki Haru trade.
I'm more upset about your team getting Toews because of a bad contract signing with Bickle. That one still kills, because I can't imagine how good Toews would be with DeBrincat and Kane right now. And DeBrincat.
Oh yeah,
it's like a mini Patrick Kane, and that's better for DeBrincat. And
here's this though. How about you actually try to find a way to keep Panarin and don't trade him for Brandon Saad straight up for Brandon Saad, and then trade Brandon Saad again, not even 2 years later, for Nikita Zadorov, that you kept for a season, and then got rid of him too.
Like COVID season, like half.
Oh my god. And well, then you get Ole Mata for absolutely nothing, and it still didn't work out with him either. It's just some of the trade, like the draft picks in Bowman, it made no sense. Like, I forget who the kid was, but there was this kid out of Chicago Steel who got drafted this year, who just got drafted in this past draft. He was some really good. I forget his name, and it really bites me that I'm blanking on his name. But this dude was like, I was like, get this kid at 11. He is like, I think his stats were absolutely astronomical good with the Chicago Steel. And I'm like, if you get this guy is going to be lights out anywhere you put him on the ice in terms of a forward, because all he does is score goals. And like, no, we're going to trade the pick away and get some defensemen at like 32. And it's like, great. Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Stan. And the thing too is like, everyone's like, oh, we could have gotten Bowen Byram. We could have gotten Trevor Zegras. Like, yeah, we could have, but how would that really affect where we're at now? Because it doesn't really matter, because of the fact that depth scoring is still an issue. Defense is still an issue because they give up way too many chances in front of goal. I feel bad for all of our goalies we've ever gotten.
And who's going to develop them?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the main problem.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, I love Kevin Lankinen, but he's been hurt on and off this season.
Yeah.
And even then, it's just like the defense gives the goalies no chance to do pretty much get in they get in a rhythm per se, but it's not perfect. Like you saw what happened with Cam Ward. Cam Ward was just coming in to be a backup. He wasn't going to be the guy who was going to be starting almost every game. Or like we had Malcolm Subban, Colin Delia, and Kevin Lankinen of our 3 goalie tandem randomly out of nowhere. And Kevin Lankinen was on fire. And then it's like, oh, we'll bring in Marc-Andre Fleury. And then Fleury is getting lit up this year because I think the Hawks once again have like one of the worst defenses in terms of was it high danger chances or something like that? Because they were like back-to-back years before the Kraken came in, they were last 2 years in a row before even coming into the season. So it's just like
definitely a lot of watching on our defense.
Yeah,
it's too much watching, and Fleury is responsible for wins alone. Some games, that's just how good he is on a bad team. He is the reason why we're not Phoenix Coyotes right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I do.
Oh yeah, like I said,
we had Lankinen last year. We still weren't the Phoenix Coyotes.
Yeah, but Kevin, yeah. I'm trying to figure out.
The Coyotes are that bad.
Yeah, I mean the Coyotes are pretty bad. I mean, let's be honest.
You know what? They're gonna stockpile. They got like 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, they're do.
Gonna give them some time. They're gonna be pretty damn good.
They got like 95 picks in the next like 3 rounds. Let's be honest here. Like they could literally draft like 3 teams.
I think the Islanders are trying to take the crown for the bottom. To be honest with you,
that was my Stanley Cup pick, and I look like a moron. Yeah, they made everyone look like morons.
Hey, don't feel too bad. I kind of went with a tongue-in-cheek homer pick for the Stanley Cup, and I picked an actual winner. And my tongue-in-cheek joke didn't actually go over so well because I picked the Blackhawks to win the cup this year.
Did you?
Wow. Yeah,
well, they're not mathematically out of it. I mean, you could really clean house if you come through on that.
Yeah, Fleury just
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have placed like my $10 bet before the season started when they were plus like 5,000 or something like that, and just raking all the money or whatever the plus minus whatever it is now, like plus like 20,000 on the Blackhawks. Just put like $10, put $100 down, just rake $200,000 on the Blackhawks.
Call it a year. Yep.
Hey, they'll pull a Blues and just come out of nowhere.
That's true, man. I mean, I know they're not that team, but that was a Cinderella run by the Blues that year.
They were like unstoppable.
One coaching change, you get a former 3rd round, 4th line role player. He turns it all around. It's insane.
So if you are looking to place bets like Zach and want to do it as the action rolls in, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has your shot to win big too. New customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's right. A bump in the win column for our team means free bets for you, and we need all the wins that we can get. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you still have a shot to light the lamp. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Hockey Contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Now, if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use our promo code ShyTomahawk, bet just $1 on any NHL team, and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code ShyTomahawk at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 or older, restrictions apply. So see our show notes for details. So, Zach, who else is there?
You also get Ryan O'Reilly and everyone else.
Yeah, Ryan O'Reilly, I think that he's kind of defied the odds for quite a while. When he was in Colorado, he was a very good. Yeah, I thought that he was a very solid player, but he wasn't the type of guy that that he thought that he was at that time. He wanted $6 million. They're like, no. They shipped him off, and then he actually turned into that player that that he said that he was, which I think it's one of those things. Can I pay this guy, and then he is that person, or you're going to pay him and then it just doesn't work out,
He got paid in Buffalo and then he got sick of the shit and pulled an Eichel and won a Stanley Cup.
Maybe we should say Eichel pulled O'Reilly.
Oh, Eichel pulled an O'Reilly.
No, yeah. Eichel did something completely different,
Yeah. Speaking of that, he's coming back tonight. That's going to be very interesting. His reunion in Buffalo. I bet you the Boo Birds will be out tonight.
So what do you guys think of Norm Maciver coming back to the Blackhawks as the assistant GM?
Norm, you know what? I've been doing a little research with him coming back. I know he went with the Kracken, and I guess he didn't really. I guess he left with bad terms with Bowman, meaning he probably was disagreeing with a lot of moves and stuff. And he wanted out. And it seems like Kyle Davidson and him, were really close, and Kyle really respected him and brought him back in. So he obviously feels comfortable with the guy. It could be a good signing for him because Kyle probably trusts him. So I think I like it.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I think for the fact that, like you said, Kyle's been there since like 2010. He kind of knows everything that's going on. And I think pretty much everyone didn't really agree with Stan Bowman on a lot of things he did. I mean, let's be honest. Yep. Everyone can see that. So I think it's a good thing that, bringing someone back who was also with the team for a long time as well and knows how to find players and stuff like that. Because whatever you need to make this work, I think this is a good step. And I think Davidson right now is taking the necessary steps to try to make whatever is next be the best possible way for this team to get better through a rebuild, because obviously this team needs it. Because you look at how they've been since, they won the Cup in 15. You get swept out of 16, missed the playoffs in 17 and 18, and then let's not even talk about 19 and 20. And even last year, it's finally time for a rebuild. I just kind of wish the Blackhawks did it a year sooner without having to take the quote-unquote rebuild that they were in last year and completely blow it up this past offseason. I think it's time for a legit, like an actual legit rebuild. And luckily there's a lot of contracts coming off the books next year too. I think next offseason, it really will be the tone setter for what the Blackhawks are going to be moving forward. And I think it was Jason Watsky and James Deveau. They were talking about it. Like if we're making the playoffs in 3 years from now and being contenders in 5, I'll take it. And you don't want to hear that, but it's successful. If you're
done, yeah,
it needs to be done. Like I said, if you're back in the playoff hunt in 3 years and they make it a cup run in 5, I'm all for it, because at least it opens the window for a good long-term run instead of just sputtering along and being, the Arizona Coyotes or the Montreal Canadiens or all these teams that are just automatically bottom feeders almost every single season. At least you're putting the effort to make it better. So I think it was a good move to bring him back. And it seems like Davidson's kind of setting the pieces up to actually make this rebuild successful and not just be like, oh, we're going to try it for about 6 months and then we're just going to just nuke it for whatever reason. Like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I have to agree with both of you guys. Norm is he's a hockey guy. He's the hockey guy that you see sitting in the stands, watching the game. He's down there with the players, chewing gum with them, or what have you, and Davidson isn't that guy. Davidson is a guy who sits behind the computer. He reads numbers, and Norm is going to even out that, that tendency to want to go to the wall on analytics, and say, hey, look, this is what you're missing on this player. This is what the analytics aren't showing. Davidson 100% needs that guy, and I think that he has him in Norm. So I think that it's a good pick. I think it's a step in the right direction from, what they've been doing, naming him. I think that he's made, the right choice, firing a couple people that have been there for a long time. I think he fired the director of scouting or something like that. He fired 2 people, longtime people, and bringing in some, I guess we could say, new blood. He's been gone for a while, and he's trying to right the ship. So I like the moves that he's making so far. 100% on the rebuild. I think that Kane and Taves are going to possibly. I don't know what they're going to do with them. Kaner has a life in Chicago, so I could see him wanting to finish his time out here. I'm not sure about Taves. Taves has health issues, so he may want to retire and hang it up. But if they do decide to come back, me and Matt talked about it. Possibly they each get $5 million deals. Obviously, taking a hometown discount for that, and they're going to have to pay DeBrincat, and DeBrincat's going to be a $10 million a year guy unless they want to trade him for picks. And if they're going to trade him for picks, then you might as well trade Hagel while you can. And if you're going to do that, you might have to move Seth Jones too and tell him that it's a complete teardown. So, what do you think, Zach? Do you think, to be honest, because me on my opinion is, if they're going to do what you call a bare bones teardown, they got to get rid of everybody and start from the bottom, or are they going to build around kind of what they have here, kind of like Seth Jones? Somewhat Kaner for the next 3 years, maybe 3 to 4 years, possibly. I mean, he might retire a point per player person, kind of like Nick Lidstrom. Right to the day he retired, he was a top defenseman in the league. I think Kaner might be a one of the top players still, and but I think that it could be Kaner, possibly Lankinen, and Seth Jones, Brandon Hagel, and DeBrincat.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I've always been on the fence that you could build around, you can do a rebuild that is centered around a core rather than just doing an absolute just blowing the whole thing up and trying to bring it back together, because we've seen that, and that takes forever for some teams to get it done. And I don't think, because you're trying to get fans to be behind a rebuild, but also still be excited to watch games. And I don't think that it would be really hard for fans to swallow. Like, you already have fans be understanding that, okay, we're going to be in a rebuild, and fans are like, okay, we're okay with a rebuild because we need it. Right. But I think it will sting a lot more if they just clean house and there's no one left. Right. Because if you build on the core of DeBrincat, Hagel, let's say, Patrick Kane, Seth Jones, sure, Lankinen, I'll throw this out there, maybe even a Dominic Kubalik on a deal that works for him that's not astronomically ridiculous. Someone just make yeah, something like that. And I think Kaner said he wants to stay, and a lot of people are like, well, he can say that but doesn't really mean it. But I think, because you can see even like last year during the really shortened season, Patrick Kane was having a lot of fun with these young guys. Yeah, like he's smiling a lot more. It looks like he's just having fun because, and I don't want to make this sound bad, but I think it's just having him being the quote unquote leader of the team. Like, Dunks was kind of there, but Dunks was already gonna be on his way out at some point soon. Siebes wasn't there. Tazer wasn't there very much. So it was like Kaner was like the quote unquote veteran, the main guy of the whole team. Right. And I think that he was able to, be able to have fun with these guys. Because you saw it every warm up with him and Tommy Hawk. It looks like they were having a lot of fun with the puck toss. Yeah. And like when Philip Kurashev was scoring, when Dominic Kubalik was hitting bombs from Ovi's office, right? Alex DeBrincat was scoring goals. You saw how much fun he was having. And I think if you keep Kaner here I think he can go for another 5 years. I think he can go for another 5 years, and I've even wrote an article about this, that I think Patrick Kane will be the greatest American player of all time, and I think he'll easily be one of the top 2 Blackhawks of all time, because of just how good he is and just how much I think he wants to be a lifer, because you don't really see a lot of lifers on one team very much anymore. I think he wants to do that because he loves Chicago. He really likes the guys that's there, and he's talked to Kyle, and it seems like that Kaner is kind of all in on the rebuild, and hoping that he is. If you get, like I said, get him on a good contract and make it work, I think you keep him here, have him be the veteran presence that you kind of need on a team that is going through a rebuild, because you really don't want to have a bunch of new guys and then you're all like, angry together, and there's not that calming voice being like, hey, it's a slow build, it's going to take, it's going to take some time. And I think you definitely like a Travis Sajak for the Devils, or, you need that guy in there that's going to help get these guys, better on and off the ice, and just let them know, like, hey, it's going to be a process, but it'll be worth it in the end. I think Kaner would be that perfect guy to have. I think you could do a rebuild around a solid core of guys rather than just blowing it up if you make the contracts work. And with Toews, like I said, I hate to say it, but it's like, I think after next year, I think he might need to hang him up because it seems like it's just he missed all last year. This year's been really tough on him, and you can tell like just something is different with him.
Yeah,
and even you can tell when he came back to when Stan Bowman left and all that, his mental headspace has just been all over the place. I think maybe next year he just needs to ride off into the sunset and just call it a career because maybe it's just I think the illness kind of got to him and. Or if he wants to keep playing, maybe move on from Jonathan Toews. And it sucks saying it, but I think maybe it's time. Like if we gotta get that new core, to be the guys on this team.
Yeah, I agree with you on pretty much everything. As far as Toews is concerned, right before he had that concussion, I thought that he probably had been playing his best 2 weeks of hockey up to that point. He just seemed like a different guy up until he had that concussion. And obviously we know his history with concussions. And you know what? I don't want to see this guy getting concussed more and more. He's a legend, in Chicago, and it might be time for him to hang it up. 100% on Kaner. I was mentioning to Matt offline earlier that, Patrick Kane is somebody who just loves to play hockey. It's not about the money. Obviously he wants to get paid for his talents, and he has been paid, handsomely for it, but he's lived up to his contract. He loves to play hockey. He loves everything that there is about hockey. He likes, working out. He likes hanging out with the players, like there are certain guys who just want to just show up and play, or some guys who they don't want to practice, they don't want to do that stuff. Kane loves doing all of it. I told Matt, in order for the Blackhawks to be successful, I think in the scouting, they need to find out which guys are in the locker room taping up their sticks 10 minutes before everybody else, which guys are working on puck handling, more than everybody else, because those are the dudes who always tend up to be, the really good NHL players. And it's not always the guys who are, they have all the scouts drooling over them, or guys who are putting up 100 points, in 50 games in the OHL. That's not always the case. Matt brought up Braden Point, in our conversation. Braden Point is, man, he's an absolute
second round pick. Yeah,
second round pick. He's an animal. He's the guy. If you want to do a redraft, he should probably be minimum top 5 pick.
Oh, for sure.
And me personally, from a business perspective, I think that they need to keep Toews and Kane and the favorites around just so they can get people in the stands to keep funding, the Blackhawks. From a business perspective, I think that they have to keep the core. But I think the most efficient way to do it would be the complete teardown. If you look at Detroit, look at, what Stevie Eiserman's building over there. It hasn't been pretty the past few years, but you know what? They're slowly coming back. I had no idea who Morris Cedar was before this year, but you know what? This guy is an undercover animal, a one-man show. And you know what? It's going to keep on going on in Detroit. They're probably another year or two away from really being competitive. But the slow rebuild is it's slow and painful. But once you get it, kind of like the Blackhawks back in 08-09, when we brought in Kaner and Toews, they brought in a young team together, had a couple veterans, and then they all grew together. And the Blackhawks need to kind of figure out how to do that, to get that camaraderie going between a bunch of young guys trying to make it in the league and some veterans trying to show them the way.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely need to find a way to make. I think definitely depth also needs to be a thing too that they need to focus on, because for whatever reason, it's like and the way Derek King said that's really rubbed me the wrong way. It felt so weird. He's like we need two really solid lines instead of 3 okay lines. And that's just like, man, you really don't want to hear that from a head coach, especially with the team that you kind of have. You're like, man, I really don't want to be hearing the fact that you're stacking lines because, we're not good depth wise. And it's like, I'm not saying you have to be out there. You have to be like a Tampa Bay or Vegas Golden Knights or Carolina Hurricanes or these teams that are so well stacked. Now, there are teams that like Carolina. They've got a lot of their guys are homebrewed guys, or they got guys that other teams couldn't keep on their roster, but they made it work because of who their head coach is. I think depth is going to be something the Hawks need to look at, and I definitely think a head coach that's built for a rebuild that can help this team mentally grind during an 82-game season where you're mostly going to lose a lot of games. I think you need that guy, and like I said, I don't think Derek King is that guy, because let's be honest, we all saw the video of him saying, "Oh, hey, Alex DeBrincat, he was named to the All-Star team." He gave zero enthusiasm for Alex getting in there. He threw it in at the last minute. It's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, Alex is an All-Star," and you're like, "Wait, what?" Like, Alex DeBrincat's an All-Star. You kind of just casually throw it in there like it's like no big deal. It's like, and I'm not saying we need a raw coach, but it's like we kind of need someone who's, been there and done that in the NHL, because we went from Q to two guys now that have no NHL experience, and Derek King hasn't really done a whole lot. He didn't do a whole lot in Rockford, and I just think you really need a coach who's been in the league for a long time and can like guide a team through a rebuild.
What kind of guy do you think that's available? Like, what kind of guy would you go after?
Man,
it's kind of funny, man, because like the Blackhawks need two different things. They need a coach that can guide them through a rebuild, and then they need a coach that can win a Stanley Cup, because those two things aren't the same.
No, and they're really not. And you hate to say it, but it does make sense, and I can see where that that might have to happen unless you get really lucky where you have a coach that's gone through both, and you can keep them through that whole process.
Right.
That would well, of course, that's a pipe dream, but anything can happen. But I know some people joke around like, "Oh, John Tortorella." No, please no. I don't know. I can't really tell you a name of a coach that would be perfect, but I just...
Claude Julien?
Say that again, Matt.
Claude
Julien.
I mean...
The French came out.
I mean, honestly, kick the tires on Rick Tocchet, maybe. I wouldn't be upset about that.
Me and Mike talked about that. We said he would be like an ideal top 3 guy when they were... we were talking about this in the summer, I think, Mike. We wanted Colleton fired day one.
Yeah, we did.
And I
remember that. I remember you guys talking about that. Yeah, I mean... I wouldn't mind kicking the tires on Rick Tocchet, maybe. See what, bring him in.
He's got a good gig right now on TNT. He's like a Charles Barkley-like dude on that panel, and I enjoy him on there. So who knows? He might not even want to coach again.
Yeah.
I mean, but
his job's safe. It's safe.
Hey, give him enough money, and you get Patrick Kane.
True.
Like, why not?
Yeah, that's true, man.
I mean,
I like Rod Brendamore though. I watch all those videos that the pre-games and the post-games. He's got a lot of enthusiasm, and he was a player. And the guys love that. And I think a guy in a rebuilding team that would be a perfect fit, but there's not too many Rod Brendamores out there.
No. It's not really. And Rod loves North Carolina, so that's not really going to happen.
I'm not saying he's coming here. I'm saying the type.
There's
not too many guys with that personality. That dude looks like he can strap him up and be on the first line. He's jacked.
Yeah. I've joked that he can jump over the board, score 2 goals, get an apple, and body somebody, and then after
still coach. Yeah, like Reggie Dunlap on Slapshot.
Yeah, or like Jackie Moon. Just like it's. I don't know. It's definitely gonna be interesting to see what the Hawks do, but like I said, I don't mind Derek King, but he's not it. Like, some of the stuff he says, it's like, oh, at least it wasn't too many men. It's like, bruh.
Yeah.
It's like, bruh, come. Like, some of the stuff he says in pressers, I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Just a different personality. He's just like an older guy, and he's just laid back, and you kind of want more enthusiasm, like, a Rod Brendamore.
He's like the fun uncle who tries to be cool, but you're kind of just like, why? Like, why?
Because things were so bad with Colliton, I actually love Derek King.
I like.
Do you know what I mean, man? Like, it was so bad with Jeremy Colliton.
Compared
it's
to Colliton, he's Coach Q.
This guy is just so much better than Colliton.
Yeah,
he's like Scotty Bowman. Like compared to Jeremy Colliton.
Yeah, I mean, now we know with Q, I don't feel as bad for him leaving, but when he did leave, I'm like, seriously. He was 6-1. It wasn't really that bad. And then you had Jeremy Colliton stay for how long?
Yeah.
Too long.
Too long. Yeah. 2 years too long. You're like, why is this still a thing? Even after going 9-3, he was still the head coach.
Yeah.
That was just Bowman protecting his job a little bit longer.
Actually, I thought he was 0-9-3, and they didn't win their first game until
he didn't win a game.
Yeah, he didn't win a game.
Oh, that's right, he
season.
did. That's even worse.
Yeah,
You're
I know.
proving my point. It's even worse.
Terrible. When
it's like, oh my gosh,
when
dude.
Q was fired, I thought that it was the right move to make because it was time for the Blackhawks to move on. The thing is that they needed to rebuild from that moment on. They needed to tear it down because the Stanley Cup ride was over, and they were just trying to hold on to that and trying to hold on to it just a little bit more. Let's bring back these other guys who were there with us for the ride. They needed to tear it down then, and they didn't. And that's what they should have done. And instead, they kind of limped along with, I wouldn't even say limped along with Colliton. It was probably one of the worst decisions that Stan Bowman made. I'm going to say that with hindsight because, bringing in a young coach to coach the team, it sounds like a good idea in theory, but
he's got no personality.
They couldn't respect him because he was too close in age to everybody. It's one thing to have a guy who's close in age, but it's another thing where the guy's like 2 years older than you.
Well, I mean, Davidson's 33. Like, he's only 3 years older than I am, and it's like I think like if you're close in age,
he's younger than Taves.
Yeah, Davidson's 33. That's how young he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I can kind of see what you see maybe with age, but I still think even if you're younger than some guys, but you have an idea of what you want to do and you have a presence and you can have guys buy into your system, it works. I just don't think that guys bought into his system. I don't think it would have mattered if he was 32 or 62.
Yeah.
If your system is absolute,
was it?
It was no defensive system.
It was like a 1-2. I don't know. It's like trying to pinch when it never really worked because it was
men's league. It was men's league. Just get out there and try to score.
Give it to Kaner. Kaner's gonna carry it in. If he can't get it in, pass it back. He's going to circle around because this is going to be his fourth shift in a row, and then he's gonna bring it into the up the neutral zone
and put Duncan Keith as a shutdown defenseman. Yeah. And he's not that.
Oh my gosh, dude! And it's like, let's do a 1-man rush into the zone on a power play. It's just. There's no changes. The lines never made sense half the time, and it's just the system. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's not the system; it's Jeremy Colliton." Jeremy Colliton is the reason why the system stinks. It's the system, and it's like they don't have like the system he wants isn't what we had in the guys. Yeah. Like for your system to work, you have to have the players around you to make it work. And if your system doesn't work, maybe switch your system around to help work with the guys that you have. And he never did it. He kept trying to put the round peg in the square hole that was 3 sizes too big for the hole. It made no sense.
He kept doing it, never changed. That's why we're terrible.
Yeah, you take a hammer to the thing, it wouldn't go in. You try to shave it down a little bit, still wouldn't go in. It didn't really matter how you did it. It was still the same thing because Jeremy Colliton did not want to change, and that was his problem. He never wanted to change. Management got on him about changing it. He kind of did, and still went back to it again. Like Jeremy Colliton never made it work, and that's why guys never really adjusted to him. And I think that's the problem. Like if you have a coach that has the presence and the idea of how to make something work, guys will buy into it as long as you treat them like humans and actually work with them to make them better instead of just like what you said, Matt. Look at Carolina and Rod Brindamore. Rod Brindamore has a presence. He has an idea. All the guys fight for each other. and that's why the Hurricanes went from middle of the road to going on 4 years now when they're absolutely almost dominating the Eastern Conference, because it's 4 lines of waves coming at you, and they will outskate you, and they will grind you out like with body checks. Like they'll basically fight you, steal your lunch money, and then go score while laughing at you. That's basically what the Hurricanes are.
Until they play at Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Then they go out. Then they go out, and they go out, and then they commit penalty after penalty after penalty and throw the whole series away.
I mean, I gotta ask Zach this.
Hey, let's be honest though. It's not as bad as being the President's Trophy winning Blackhawks going into play Nashville and score 1 goal the entire series.
Yes, that's
you
true.
You don't match your mantra of 1 goal.
That's
with
true.
literally 1 goal.
Yeah. that was Stan Bowman right there.
Hey,
I know.
I gotta ask Zach one question about Nedeljkovic. Were you surprised that they moved him in the summer?
Yeah, it was a really big surprise. The fact that you just came off a Calder final nomination.
Yeah.
Trade him away. I don't remember what they really got back in that trade, honestly, because it was still
the money that bad? Like, was he asking for a ridiculous amount of money? Because
from what I saw, it wasn't really that far off. I think it was like, maybe it was term. It was like a quarter. I think it was like a quarter. I think it was like $250,000 difference or something.
Wow.
Well, I know me and you, we talk a lot on Twitter, and I'm always raving about Freddie Anderson. I'm so impressed with how he's playing this year. Getting out of Toronto,
Freddie's amazing.
He's refreshed guy. He's no pressure, and he's lighting it up right now. And I guess that was the right move.
Yeah. Well, plus look at the defense he has around him too. I mean, when you have Jacob Slavin, who gets like 4 penalty minutes a season, Brett Pesce, and the fact you also have now Ethan Bear is one of your guys. You have Ian Cole, Brady Shea. I mean, the defense is pretty solid. And we're not even talking about Tony DeAngelo, who leads the whole team in defense and scoring.
He's underrated for sure.
I thought Ethan Bear was a great pickup.
I thought it was a great pickup. I mean, I feel bad for him, the fact that he has to fight for minutes with Brandon Smith of all people. But I mean, here we are.
Yeah.
Did you remember the rumor that Bowman wanted Bear instead of Jones for that Keith trade? That would have been great for the Hawks, man.
Wow.
Why couldn't that have been it? But I mean,
they didn't want it. They wanted. I guess he settled for Caleb Jones to try to lure in his brother.
Caleb's not bad, man. I don't think that he's a bad
I like
defenseman.
Caleb, but I think Ethan Bear is going to be better.
Yeah.
Caleb Jones for me was just the added piece to get his brother there. Like I don't really he's good, but
he's steady. He's steady.
I hate to say this. He was more so a pawn to get his brother. That's all it was. And it's bad to say, but that's kind of feel like everyone saw it as the writing on the wall. You get his brother, you're probably going to get him. That's all it really was. And like I said, Caleb Jones is good, but is he an AHL regular?
He's fighting for a spot in and out almost every night. I think he's scratched tonight, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
They scratched him tonight.
He's like a 7th defenseman or like a top 2 minor league D-man. It sucks to say that, but it kind of, it's what the vibe you kind of get with him. I mean,
he had a good camp.
Yeah, I mean his camp was fine. It's just he's not a regular top 6 D-man that is lights out every night.
Yeah, right. I want to see more Ian Mitchell. I think
next year we will.
Wyatt Kalina. I want him and Wyatt Kalina.
Mike's a big Wyatt guy. Wyatt guy too.
Hey,
Russell
hey, Wyatt Teller with the Browns. Don't mess with the Wyatt. They'll come and surprise you. But no, I like Kalina. He was really good when he was with Wisconsin. I mean, we gotta just get these guys who they've had forever in their system to actually just play on the team for a full season and give them the actual experience, because I like Jake McCabe, but we have so many guys on defense.
Right.
We don't need to keep bringing
a Murphy guy. I think it's time to say goodbye to him.
They gave him a letter.
Mike feels. I'm not a big fan of him.
I like Connor, but I miss Jalmerson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh.
you know what? And
I've always been bitter about that trade.
It's unfair to Connor Murphy because he's a different player, and I think
Connor's I like Connor.
He's always going to be compared to Hammer.
Hammer time.
He's always going to be compared to him, even though that he's a different player. I think that he's gotten better since he's gotten here. Like he's developed better. But he's not a top pairing defenseman.
No, he's not. And like I said, and I have no problem with Connor Murphy. It's just you could have easily kept Nicholas Hjalmarsson in Chicago. Like there was no reason to get rid of him. I'm sorry, there was no reason. And like
you know what, man? He started having
contracts.
injury issues after when they traded him. He had injury issues right after that. I think he played one full season with Phoenix, and then after that, he had injury issues.
The pucks were going right to the organs because the skin and the bones were just so like marshmallowed out.
Oh man.
It's just hey. Hjalmarsson looks good now though. I know you guys probably saw his ceremony night.
Yeah, he does.
He looks like he gets to lace him up and
I met him
block about 50 block 50 shots.
He's not a big guy. He's a very thin dude. And when you're looking at him like in person, it's like, dude, this guy blocks 90 shots a freaking season. Like what?
Hey,
this guy right here.
Hey, can we talk about his what was it, game 6 against the Red Wings, or was it game 7?
Seven. I was there. I got beer spilled all over my head after that.
I was so mad. I was so mad about that goal. I was losing my mind. I'm like, he scored. No, because of this fight that happened behind it. Are you kidding me?
Oh my god, yeah.
He even jokes about it. Yeah, he goes, "This was the greatest goal ever for me," and it was
the greatest non-goal ever. You're just like, bruh.
He mentioned it himself. He said, "I wanted to retire 2 years." 2 years too early, then 2 years too late, man. And I'm happy for him because, if he gives them a better quality of life, that's what you want for these guys. You hate seeing these guys who give everything to the game and then afterwards they're in like a wheelchair 5 years later.
Best defenseman in Hawks history.
Yeah.
Defenseman.
By far. Like I know we just gave him a ceremony, like a ceremony night, or like his number has to get retired.
I told Matt that they should have told Seth Jones that number 4 was off limits.
Yeah, you can have 44. Patrick Pouin won't care.
Yeah.
or give him 6. Ole Mata's not going to care. Give him 6. Or or Jake McCabe. But whoever has 6 now, I'm just saying, like Hjalmarsson, his number should be retired. Everyone's like, well, you can't retire all their numbers. Like, actually, you can.
Yes, you can.
You can. It should be 2, 4, 7, 10. Where am I at here?
19.
19.
Twice. 2 19s. You need
Troy Murray.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
3 19s.
Well,
Savard, Murray.
Oh, Savard was 18.
Oh, 18.
And
sorry.
He's up there. Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah.
I think you got to give Steve Larmer, 28, one of the best Hawks.
Absolutely.
You have to.
The forgotten decades when no one, watched the Hawks. This guy had 470-something goals as a Blackhawk.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how about the 1992 Hawks team? Can we have one night just to remember those guys?
Yeah, I know, man.
Please.
I could talk for 3 hours about those 90s teams. I'd tell Mike, you better shut me up because I'm going to keep going.
Okay, but I know you guys said something about Crow. Corey Crawford needs to get his number retired, and I am so tired of the disrespect that he got when he was in Chicago. Oh my ever-living word. He secured 2 cup series. Like, oh, he wasn't that great, blah blah blah. He had a great defense in front of him.
He did have some really incredible teams that played in front of him. But he
should have won a Conn Smythe though. Even Patrick Kane said he desered a Conn Smythe
that year. Absolutely, yes.
Oh, for sure. Especially in the Ducks
15,
series.
Right?
Yeah, it was the 15. Yeah, because the Ducks, that series was, I think I had like
best
15.
Series.
I think I had 15 mental breakdowns in that game 7 alone, just by the sheer insanity.
Taves secured that game. He secured the bag practically. He was a man on a mission that game.
Him and Kessler battles, best battles.
No, how about Antoine Vermette in game 6 scoring and then jumping over the dude mid celebration? I'm like, oh my gosh, Antoine Vermette of all guys. Like, what?
That's
or
when
you bring back Michael
clicked for him.
It clicked. It clicked late. Yep.
Yeah, it clicked really late, and then after that, he was what they wanted, what they needed him to be.
Do you remember Q when he scored? He skated by. They show Q, and you just see his mouth. It's about fucking time, and then he starts laughing. I was dying.
Yeah, right. No. Oh, here's another number you have to retire. Marian Hossa.
Yeah.
81. Yep.
You gotta retire Hossa, man. Because if it wasn't for Hossa, I mean, who knows what happened? I mean, get him in. I mean,
he scored some big goals.
Oh, for sure.
They should have a year of retiring one of these guys, maybe once every year, to keep fans interested. Like, hey, we got a big retirement night coming up. Let's
These
get
guys
tickets.
won 3 cups together. At least the guys who won 3 cups together should have their numbers retired.
I'm with Zach with Crawford, and I'll be honest with you guys. I know, Mike, I'm not a big Crawford fan. I really never was a big Crawford fan, but I respect his journey. I mean, he was with the organization for a long time.
Yeah, I do too.
He did it the right way. He was in the AHL with the Norfolk Admirals. He started there, and he paid his dues, and he got his shot. Even in 2010, he lost to Niemi, maybe because of salary at the time.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
Niemi,
it was. Yeah, because it was Niemi and
Hue.
Yeah, it's crazy to think we had Cristobal Huet at one point. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and that was the insane part of the 2010 team is the fact that you forget we had Niemi and Huet, and then you go to 2013 and you have
different goalies.
Turco
and Crawford. Yeah.
Wait a minute. In the
Marty, Turco, and Crawford were 2011.
Huet was on the team in 2010.
Huet was I believe Huet was the backup goalie.
Well, he started as a starter, and then
Do you guys remember though? In
took
2009, Huet had a great game when Hobby Bullen went out in the Red Wings at Western Conference Final. Huet was phenomenal, and they said, "Oh yeah, he's going to be our guy next year." And we were stuck with him anyway.
Right.
But the plan was for Crawford to be the backup. But Niemi kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and
he
thank
did.
God he did. Because Mike, you were at my wedding that game.
I almost didn't go.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I really am.
I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, man, I can't make it to this. I can't make it to this wedding." She's like, "Why not?" I'm like, "The Hawks are on. They're in the Western Conference Finals."
It was Niemi and Bolin. That series versus the Sharks. Man. It was Niemi and Bolin. It was a great series, and Niemi was a big part of that run. And then Doug Wilson pulls the offer sheet to Jarmelson, and of course we're going to take Hammer, right. And then he steals Niemi from us. Genius move on his part because he was good with the Sharks, but it all worked out for Crawford.
Yeah, here's a big what if too. I want to get back to Crawford here in a second. Here's another big if for goalies. What if the Hawks actually kept Dominik Hasek in the system?
Me and Matt were talking about that the other day. How do you make that choice between
guy?
Belfour
I'm a pro Belfour guy, so you're not going to get any. Yeah.
Oh no, I love Eddie Belfour. I mean, I run a hockey meme page on Facebook.
I saw that.
My literal first name was Neil Before Me. It's spelled like Eddie Belfour's last name. Yeah,
I was going to ask you about that yesterday. That's freaking hilarious.
Yeah, because a lot of people say Neil Before Zod. Neil Before Me because it just spell his name out, and that's just because that's just how great Eddie Belfour was. I'm just saying, could you imagine if the Hawks were able to keep Eddie Belfour and Dominik Hasek? Belfour leaves, you bring in Hasek as the new starting goalie.
You never know.
You imagine those Hawks teams with Dominik Hasek as your goalie, but it is what it is. But going with Crow, I mean, he played really well, and it's just I don't understand the hate he gets in Chicago because does he let in soft goals? Yes, all goalies do. I mean, let's be honest, no goalie's perfect, but he was really dominant for 2 cup runs and for a lot of other playoff runs that the Hawks were in. He wasn't lucky. It's not like some of these other it wasn't like Jordan Benson gets hot one half of a season and now we all know that he's an absolute sieve who gets rattled by backup goalies. I just don't understand why Crawford gets so much hate, even though he played out of his mind the entire time he was with Chicago until got all the concussions and stuff. It's mind blowing.
I agree, man. But hey, dude, this has been a lot of fun talking hockey. We want to have you on again. Can you do that for us?
Oh, for sure. Anytime, just let me know. I'd love to come back on and talk. I can talk Hawks forever, as you can tell.
Yeah, man. That's what we're all about, though.
We're gonna hit the time machine next time. get in your DeLorean.
But hey, Zach,
right.
man, we really appreciate you coming on. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. This is the Tomahawk. We're out of here.